Hello, everybody. This is Kyle here. Today, I wanted to talk to you about death and how you can cope with the things happening in your life where people are dying around you or your own mortality. So, I just wanted to make a short video where I could provide some kind of perspective that could help you deal with what is happening around you. So perhaps you're dealing with a death in your family or you're dealing with your own mortality. The idea of death is very scary, and people have a natural, inborn, primal fear of death and fear of the things that surround death. If you think of horror and media that's scary, most of the time it has to do with things that imply death, skeletons and skulls and anything like that. People are naturally hardwired to run away from death. So the first thing I want to say is that you should give yourself a little bit of space to be okay with your own fear of death. If you have it, some people don't, but if you do, just be okay with it, because you are normal, and that is a normal human response. It would be abnormal if you were completely 100% okay with death. In fact, it's a very, very normal thing to have a fear of it happening. And also, when we think of the things that we love in our life, our friends and our family, you want them to stay around. You want them to be around forever or for the rest of your life. And so for somebody to pass away or die can be very, very sad, because we naturally want them around us. We don't want them to be out of our life. So the first thing I want you to do is just accept that you don't like death and you're scared of death, and that death in general is a negative thing. Even for somebody who's gotten to the point where they're more comfortable with death and death is a natural process and they understand it, and they're as accepting as they can, they could still not like it. So for instance, an example would be like a rainy day. You can accept that there's a rainy day, but that doesn't mean that you like when it rains. Or for here, this morning the sun was out and then it snowed. So for me, I prefer that it doesn't snow. I prefer that it's still sunny out, but I understand, it's a natural phenomenon and it happens. And the same thing you should understand with death is that it's a natural phenomenon. It happens. It's part of life. You might not like it, but you can do the best you can to accept that it's happening and accept that it's going to happen to you. Another thing I would like to mention is there are many people who have religious or spiritual ideas of death. And I think that this is also a normal, comfortable way of dealing with death, is accepting yourself as part of a bigger whole, which is spirituality, which is the idea of thinking of yourself as not just this little isolated being, but seeing yourself as interconnected with everybody and everything. Basically, even if you have a scientific or atheist sort of perspective of life, I think it still can be beneficial to think of yourself in a spiritual way. Think of yourself as, okay, I'm just like the other animals around. Like, animals pass away, animals are born, they grow older, they pass away. I too am like an animal. I was born, I grow older, and I will pass away. And so you can take this naturalistic perspective, think of yourself like the trees, that they're here and they try to get sunlight, they try and grow, but they too go away eventually. And to think of yourself as part of the material of the world, that you came as material from the universe, and then one day you will go back to the universe. So on one hand, accepting death, and then the second thing to do is to see it as a natural process and to connect it to some sort of spiritual understanding. And then I think in a third thing you can do is try to find the things that you want to do, a bucket list. If given that you have a specific amount of time on Earth. You're not going to be around forever. What can you do? You know, what can you actually accomplish that will make you feel like, okay, you know, when death comes, perhaps it's of old age, which I think is the ideal death for people. When I'm in my 70s, 80s, 90s, 100, whatever, what will I have wanted to do before I pass away? Whether it's to do with professionally or relationship wise or traveling or something like that, you can look at your life and think of, well, what do I want to do before I die? You know, if I only have a limited amount of time, what can I accomplish? Or what can I do? What can I fill my time with? So the acceptance of death, the sort of spiritual or religious understanding of death, and then also using death as a way of looking at our lives as finite, and there's value here in doing specific things because I'm not going to be around forever. If I lived forever, then I could do whatever I wanted. You know, I could take hundreds of years to go travel somewhere because I know it would be there and I'd still be here. But the shortness of life means that you are compelled to go out and try something and to do something. So I think these are a few key things you can do to help deal with the fear of death. Once again, understanding that it's natural. There's nothing wrong with you by fearing death or being sad about the people that have passed on, but that you can accept that this is part of reality, part of life, part of experience, part of the human experience, and then by living with the feeling, maybe one day you'll come to sort of an understanding and acceptance that you're going to pass away one day, as I have done. And just a short story that back probably around 6 years ago or so, I had a very, very tough time dealing with death, and I had a lot of anxiety about death, and I thought of death all the time. I thought of, like, how can I just not exist anymore? But then by thinking through it, dealing with it, and thinking through as many of the theories about it as I could, and talking to people online and in my personal life about it, I've come to a more understanding point where, to me, you know, I like life, I want to keep living, but eventually I'm going to pass away, and I think I've accepted that's my life. So hopefully this is helpful for you. If you have any comments, you can leave them and I'll try to talk with you about that. And if you want to like and subscribe, that would really help my channel to grow. So thank you. Bye.